Now we would have understood that communication management is very critical for the project success, where like in PMI they suggest for all there is a planning section. The processes from the PMI is such a way that you always have a planning section. So one is planning, then managing, then controlling. So likewise in communication management also you have a plan section, and then you have a managing the communication, and then the controlling the communication. Planning comes under planning process group, managing comes under the executing process group, and controlling communications comes under monitoring and controlling process group. What is as now we would have understood that as a project manager, it's very very critical that we communicate properly. The PMBOK guide often suggests work to be done in a more structured way, right? So basically we should understand that whenever you're talking to your team member or how you talk it, you have to do it effectively within the time you have been given. So everything boils down to the communication management. So that part we need to really understand that, basically structured way in the sense we need to plan it. If you are going to have meeting processes, you have to plan it. Management process considers how to store. Basically some companies use knowledge management systems. They use certain tools and techniques for these communication. You can schedule a meeting through that tool, etc. It is a project management tool also provides that. So in PMI communication is no exception, where communication also, you can say that the communication also should be in a structured way. We should know when to escalate, we should know when to talk to your team. So it's very critical part, and that too in IT projects it's one of the crux area. It is entirely dependent upon your project is successful or not because of this. If you communicate well, your project is successful. If you're not, then it will lead to the failure. The planned communication management process considers how to store, maintain, distribute and retrieve information, and what will happen to all the project information once the project is closed. Like many organization, they use knowledge management system, right? Like to store information, to retrieve information. So in planning you describe what you are going to use as a tool. It helps you determine what systems and processes are already in place to support communication needs on that project and what will need to be created. And it also focuses on the information and communication needs of the stakeholders. At the end, you are going to communicate to the stakeholders, and you are going to define in this plan communication that what you are going to do. Are you going to send your status reports? Are you going to, create minutes of meeting for each and every meeting? So likewise, the plan should be very clear what you are going to do. This process looks at how to maximize the effectiveness and efficiency of communication on the project, including what should be communicated. I think it is a bold line here, including what should be communicated. As a project manager, you should be aware what should be communicated, what not. I think in daily life also it's very critical that communication plays a very key area where people judge on you on your communication, whether you are project manager, your team lead. So you should know where to talk, what to talk, and how effectively you talk. Communicating the information is not the requirement. It is how efficiently you communicate is the requirement. Then the major output of this process is a communication management plan, which documents the expectation of communicating and will guide you and the stakeholders in creating project communication to make sure information gets to the people who need it. It is very clear. It should be in a clear, through this communication plan, and it allows stakeholder to take action as necessary. See, basically in the plan, you determine the frequency of the communication to the stakeholder. So you get an approval from them, and if they don't want it in that way, then they can change it also. So it is basically creating a proper communication with the stakeholder also, so that your relationship is healthy. Project managers spend 90% of the time in the communication. That is a main thing, whether you are in the oil industry, whether you are in the IT industry, because the main is when you can't communicate clearly, you can't get things done. You have to just do it alone by yourself. In order to create an effective communication management plan, you must consider the performing organizational environment, the enterprise environmental factors. Why? Because it has a major effect in the communication. The enterprise environmental factor. including the culture and expectation. You must understand and take a structured approach to using communication technology methods and models, because your organization process asserts like documentation, like they define the structure. Like every organization, they have a structure how to be communicated when you go to the customer, how the communication should be. The bigger organization have a very much structure how your language should be, how positive your language should be when you're sales bidding, because the competition is higher. So each and every organization has their own structure. So your enterprise environmental factors, because which location you are sitting, right? The communication, if you're in US, your communication will be accordingly to that language and culture and your company environment. So you must also take into account the performing organization established processes and procedures for communicating about projects, its historical records and lessons learned from the previous project, and other stored information. Like you will also need to refer to the stakeholder register and consult the project management plan, because which customer you are going to communicate, that helps in you get the key inputs from those. And also the configuration management, you have to store this key document in the configuration management. This information will need to be communicated, and it will help you determine how you are going to plan, manage and control communication